Today, I've got a story for you that sounds a lot more like a riddle than a real-life legal drama. It's a story that's going to make us ask a really bizarre question about a number we all think we understand. So, when is minimum 50% not actually 50%? Well, believe it or not, the answer is when you're in the business of trading horse meat scraps. I'm not kidding. This exact question was at the very heart of a legal showdown that went all the way to the Oregon Supreme Court, and it completely changed how we look at the words written down in a contract. Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1932. The country is deep in the Great Depression. But over in Portland, Oregon, a totally different kind of fight is heating up. It's all about a simple business deal, a contract that came down to a tiny, tiny fraction of a percentage point. All right, so who are the main players here? Well, you've got a seller named Roscoe P. Hurst and a buyer, W.J. Lake and Company. And when you first look at their deal, it seems about as straightforward as it gets. Here's the contract. They agreed on 350 tons of horse meat scraps for $50 a ton. But just look at that last line. Minimum 50% protein. That's it. That one little phrase is where this whole thing goes completely off the rails. Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? And to make things even clearer, or so they thought, the contract had another agreement tacked on. If any of the stuff tested at less than 50% protein, the buyer would get a $5 per ton discount. So that 50% number wasn't just a suggestion, it was tied directly to the money. And, well, you can probably guess what happened next. Hearst delivers 140 tons. The lab results come back, and the protein levels are just a hair under 50%. We're talking 49.96% at the highest. So Lake and Company, the buyer, looks at the contract and pays the lower price, $45 a ton. Okay, so if you're the buyer, you're thinking this is a total slam dunk, right? The contract couldn't be clearer, the numbers don't lie, so you paid what you owed. Their whole case was based on what lawyers call the plain meaning of the words. I mean, their argument is just so simple, it's almost impossible to argue with. 49.96 is, mathematically, less than 50, period. The contract's crystal clear, the discount applies, end of story. What could the seller possibly say to that? Well, you're not gonna believe this, but the seller, Mr. Hurst, he had a wild answer. He argued that in his world, in the horse meat scrap business, the words minimum 50% had a sort of secret, unwritten meaning that everybody, including the buyer, understood. His entire argument hinged on this really cool legal idea called trade usage. Think of it like this. It's the unwritten rulebook for an industry. It's the lingo, the shorthand, the stuff that's so common, you don't even bother writing it down in a contract because, well, everyone just knows. So Hearst's claim was pretty gutsy. He basically said, yeah, the contract says 50%, but everyone in our business, including the guy on the other side of this deal, knows that really means anything 49.5% or higher. He wasn't trying to rewrite the deal. He was trying to explain what the deal actually meant in their world. And here's where the story gets really interesting. You'd think the court would just laugh this off, right? But they didn't. They actually took it seriously, and they realized this idea isn't that weird at all. In fact, it happens all the time. Just look at some of the examples they brought up, like say a contract for 1,000 bricks. It doesn't literally mean counting out 1,000 individual bricks. Nope. In that trade, it's understood to mean building a wall of a certain size. The number stands for a result, not a literal quantity. And the examples just kept stacking up, no pun intended. Another one came from the lumber industry. If you have a contract that says 4,000 shingles, you might only get 2,500. And it's not a ripoff. Why? Because the industry custom was to bundle shingles into packs, and everyone just accepted that 2 packs were called 1,000, even if the count was way off. The business lingo completely changes what the number means. Okay, but this next one is my absolute favorite. It's the one that really drives the point home, and it's about rabbits. Yep, a contract for 1,000 rabbits could mean you're actually getting 1,200 of them. Seriously, because in some places, the local custom was that 100 dozen, which is 1,200, was just called 1,000. So here, 1,000 means more than 1,000. It's all about the context. All right, so here we are. It's the final showdown. You've got the simple, plain-as-day math on one side, and on the other, you have this secret language of bricks and shingles and rabbits. What's a court to do? In the end, they went with context, and Justice Rosman wrote something that's just so perfect, saying that a court can't just read the words on a page, it has to actually step into the shoes of the people who made the deal, and it has to learn to speak their language. So the verdict comes down, and it's a huge win for the seller, Hearst. The court reversed the earlier decision and basically said you have to allow evidence about what these words really meant in this business. The shared understanding of the trade mattered more than a dictionary definition. So why are we talking about a nearly century-old case involving horse meat? What does this have to do with us today? Well, it turns out a lot, because the principle this case established is absolutely fundamental to how we do business, even now. What this whole story really boils down to are three huge ideas. First, words aren't set in stone, they're flexible. Second, what gives them their true meaning is the context and the shared understanding between people. And third, the law can't just live in a vacuum. It has to understand the real-world language of how people actually get things done. At the end of the day, this whole decision is about fairness. It stops someone from using the dictionary as a weapon, from using a super literal gotcha reading of a contract to get out of a deal that they knew, and you knew, meant something different when you shook hands. It's about honoring the real agreement. And that brings us right back to you. Think about your own world, your job, your family, your hobbies. What are the unspoken rules, the shorthand, the trade usage that everyone just gets? This crazy case about horse meat is a great reminder that those secret languages are absolutely everywhere. And a lot of the time, they're way more powerful than the words on the page.